The best way to store your fragrances. So, a lot of people don't think at all about how to store their fragrances. They just store them in the worst ways, and eventually those fragrances are going to start losing their kind of integrity. So, if you want to be particularly careful about your fragrances, maybe you have a very expensive fragrance that you want to preserve, or a vintage one, or whatever, there's a few tips you should be aware of to make sure you store your fragrances properly. So, one of the first things to avoid is do not leave your fragrances out in the sun. The sun is one of the most destructive elements, mainly because of its kind of radiation rays. So if you leave the fragrance out in the sun, maybe you leave it on a windowsill, and if you just keep it there, eventually the sun is going to break down the molecules in the fragrance. It's going to start smelling a little different than how it used to smell. Maybe it's a little bit weaker, or it just smells different, and most likely the liquid inside is going to start discoloring. So definitely do not leave your fragrances in a particularly sunny area. Obviously, if it's in the sun for a couple minutes, it's not going to do anything, but I'm talking hours upon hours every day, full sunlight, not great for your fragrances. Ideally, it's better to put your fragrances in a shady area or a dark area, like a wardrobe, your closet, somewhere, a drawer, somewhere where it doesn't get really that much sunlight. That way, it will be really preserved, pretty much untouched, unchanged, even for years. I know I have a bottle of Joy from Jean Patou from my grandmother from the early 80s, which has been in a closet for about 40 years, and it is in pristine condition because it hasn't been in the sun. So that's just a personal testament to the power of keeping your stuff out of the sun. Besides the sun, another important thing is to keep your fragrance away from humid or warm areas. So again, the same kind of problem is that your fragrance will start to break down if it's exposed to excessive humidity or excessive heat. So, for example, not a great idea to put your fragrances in the bathroom, even though a lot of people do it. I've done it a few times, but it's not a great idea. Especially, if you're using your fragrance quickly, it won't matter because you're going to use it up anyway. But if you're storing something for a while, don't put it in the bathroom. It's going to be too humid in there. And again, keep it away from hot areas, like don't put it near the stove for some reason. So, again, try to put these things near, maybe in a closet, in a cool place, the basement, if you have a basement, that sort of thing. You want it to be in a cool, dry environment, away from the sun, and those main factors will really keep your fragrance in really good shape. And, because again, the main factors are the sun, and especially like temperature fluctuations, you don't want that either. And dampness, because dampness will inevitably seep into that fragrance and ruin it eventually. But besides these main factors, you also want to, if possible, if your fragrance came in a box, you can always put the bottle back into the box when you're not using it. Now, this is a little bit more tedious, especially if you use the fragrance quite a lot, but maybe if you use it only occasionally, putting it back in the box that it came in can be useful, because usually those boxes are pretty well padded. They have like a soft liner most of the time. So the bottle itself is going to stay pretty intact, and the liquid inside is going to be protected from the elements. So putting it back in the box every so often to protect it, that's a really good option. Again, especially if you're working with an older, maybe a vintage fragrance, or just an extremely valuable fragrance, something that's hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. But if you don't have the box, it's a good idea to get any other container or box that will basically have the same function, where it's a soft, protective area for that bottle to be, so it doesn't get ruined. But otherwise, putting it on a shelf is fine, I suppose, especially if you're using it on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, the box idea is best for, because some bottles are made of actual crystal, like baccarat crystal, or something that's very expensive. So you would want to protect that bottle, not just the liquid inside the bottle, but that's more of a rare case. But those are pretty much the main tips that I have for storing fragrances. There's not really much to it. Again, it's just keep it away from the sun, keep it away from humidity and from heat, and try to keep it in a cold, dark environment. Basically just hide it away in some dark portion of your house where it will be in a stable environment. That's pretty much it. So if you found this video helpful, of course, you can leave a like, maybe subscribe, and I make videos throughout the week, so stick around for those.